Hi, my name is Evelyn.
My name is Victoria.
We will be presenting this presentation called The British Established Authority.
During the time of the East India Company expansion, the British had a goal to establish a colonial government, but it wasn't for sure that these goals were true at the time. Later on in the 17th century, the British started taking control of new cities for trade, and they got a hold of cities like Bombay from a marriage transaction. The Dutch's dominance of the spice trade happened when the Mongols had a run-in with the Portuguese, who controlled trade in Bengal. The Dutch and British came together and cornered the Portuguese, giving Dutch control of spice trade and the British controlled textile trade. The act of minting coins in India showed competition against Mongol currency and authority. Here is an example of what the minted coins looked like, and this is the logo of the East India Company.
The Battle of Plassey. The Battle of Plassey dates back to 1757 when Siraj ud Dowlah ruled Nawab in Bengal. Siraj felt threatened by the British influence over the Indian subcontinent and tried to make an attack towards the British in Calcutta. However, when Siraj returned to the EIC power, a military general, Robert Clive, was not letting the ruler of Nawab free. Clive announced a battle to Siraj called the Battle of Plassey. After Siraj was killed, the British handed his position to Mir Jafar. The Battle of Buxar. After Mir Jafar was Nawab of Bengal, however, he did not meet the British's expectations of the amount of land, money, and power that they needed. The British later on removed Mir Jafar and handed the position to Mir Qasim. He also did not meet all of the demands the British needed over Bengal, so they needed Mir Qasim at the Battle of Buxar in 1764 and presented Mir Jafar as Nawab of Bengal again.
The Treaty of Allahabad was signed in 1765. This agreement meant that the territories of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa were to be handed over to the EIC. The EIC now had the right to collect revenue and govern the entire region. EIC's rule, being called the permanent settlement, lasted up until the independence of India. The name was brought upon by General Cornwallis, and under the permanent settlement, the EIC created the land revenue system. When Tipu Sultan came into power, he was aware of the British presence, and the EIC still wanted to expand. But in his efforts to fix the British issue, Tipu was defeated, and the British took over the state of Mysore. Here is the signing of the Allahabad Treaty. The Marthas court was not fond of EIC rule, but the Treaty of Bassein forced some Marthas to submit to the EIC under a subsidiary alliance. This type of alliance gave the EIC the ability to establish a British military presence, indirect rule of a city by default, and the EIC agreed to protect the city and ruler in exchange for a small fee. The death of Rajat Singh in 1839 gave the British the opportunity they had been waiting for to take over the Punjab region. The Treaty of Amritsar was between the EIC and a Hindu ruler by the name of Gulab Singh. The treaty granted Gulab rule over the entire Kashmir Valley, a majority of Muslim population. Gula ultimately had to rule the Kashmir according to British desires. Here is the signing of the Treaty of Amritsar.
Consolidating British power. The British went under many constructions to control most of the Indian subcontinent. Governor-General Dalhousie united and consolidated the rule of India beneath the British. Dalhousie created laws from the EIC, such as the Doctrine of Lapse, to have areas of indirect rule to direct rule by the British, though this lapse went against the traditional Indian way of rule. Once Dalhousie had acquainted laws to increase British rule over the subcontinent, he centered his consideration on pursuing infrastructure and specific economics. The British Raj demanded peasants to grow crops that were not beneficial to them. They were pressured to grow indigo, which made high profits abroad for the British. However, the Industrial Revolution later affected the EIC textile trade to become less popular, and the growth of trading raw materials began. The Indian railway system made a great impact in the colonial era. The railways that were built to almost any direction of the Indian subcontinent contributed to the EIC to gain more profits from domestic trade. The significance of the railways provided troops to reach almost any part of the country in less than a day to overcome rebels against the British Raj.
Haji Shariatullah led Muslim peasant workers against their zamindars. These peasants refused to pay fees for the landowners. Even after Haji's death, his son took over these rebellions. The Blue Mutiny was a movement of peasant revolt against the labor abuses of British sovereignty. This revolt was a result of the peasants refusing to grow indigo to sell, because it didn't benefit their family's nutrition and livelihood. The British continued to push the peasants to grow indigo, resulting in the Blue Mutiny. Here's an image of what Haji looked like.
The Rebellion of 1857. The Rebellion of 1857 was a turning point for the British. The sepoys led the rebellion against their British employer for many reasons. The soldiers were required to perform acts that were against their own religious actions. Later on, more groups such as peasants, farmers, and zamindars in the Indian society were involved in rebelling against the British.
Since Jhansi is unable to rule after her husband, she had to live isolated from others in the Jhansi fort. She soon led an army to battle the British. Jhansi may have died in the battle, but her story lived on as one of courage for the injustice she faced. This is an image of Jhansi.
Here's our works cited. Thank you
Thank you for your time.